This is Brian Kane here with Erin Young Garrett and the team Allie, Beth, Allman Real Estate Mental Performance Podcast. We are in the middle of a book breakdown, a series where we're talking about the power of moments by Dan and Chip Heath. And we are today talking about chapters 3 and chapters 4 about elevation, building peaks and breaking the script. Erin, unpack for us elevation first. What is that? And talk about building peaks and breaking scripts.
So in the book, they talk about elevation being a moment that rises above all the others in a day.
Mm.
So, if you're just reflecting on the day, sort of what was the high point in that day, the thing that stands out. And then, they break it down and talk about creating these peaks and, what does it take to create that? Or, they call the peaks the elevation.
Mm.
So, and then he goes into saying boost sensory appeal, raise the stakes, and break the script, or what he called violate the expectation. And that's what helps create that elevation moment.
Yeah, breaking the norm, right? It's funny, as I was reading this, I go, I kind of do this as a speaker, right? As I'm preparing here in a hotel in Marymount, Ohio, to go speak tomorrow to about 500 student athletes. And anytime I'm designing a talk, I think about 3 steps. Number 1, break preoccupation. They think you're going to walk on stage. Thank you for having me here, blah, blah, blah. And there is no introduction. I kill the lights in the room. I play a video with really loud music that's like I'm a WWE wrestler come walking in. The lights come back on. The music starts playing. Like I'm walking down the middle of the hallway, getting people to stand up and start clapping like I'm, a madman, which I am. But as you do that and you come in, it breaks preoccupation. They're used to like a guy on a stage at a podium reading something, and I'm just going to go complete opposite end of that to break preoccupation. Second thing I do is you frame what you talk about. Third step is you step into it. You start going. So it's break preoccupation. What are we going to talk about? 10 pillars. Let's go. Here's pillar 1. And you get right to it. So it's different than the norm. And if you think about it as a real estate agent, when's the last time you as a real estate agent said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to a different town, or I'm going to go on a vacation somewhere. And one of my days on my vacation is I'm going to set up 3 appointments to look at a house with 3 different realtors. And I want to see how they show it and see any of them make it different, or is it the same? Because I've had real estate agents in Texas that would walk into a house and they'd open the door and they would go to the kitchen and sit down on their phone, and it was up to me and my wife to walk around.
Right.
And then I had other real estate agents who would come in and they would start pointing out all the things that were negative in the house. And I had another one that would come in and make every house seem like it was the best house, right? So there's like 3 different approaches. They all, but what are you doing to make it boom, to make it peak, to make it stand out? And is there any strategies that you are aware of or you've used that you'd recommend agents try to kind of make that elevation moment when you're showing houses?
Well, I'll say this first. I for any real estate agent listening, I strongly suggest it, because if you go out of town, even if you're in a different country and go tour a property, in our business, that becomes a tax write-off, your whole vacation. So I was told that by a CPA many years ago. So I happen to go visit homes on, every time I travel to help with that tax benefit.
Great idea.
And it's very fascinating, that people that are in California show a house very differently. Now, you do run into the standard, they go and sit down or ignore you, or some don't even show up, to let you in the house. I mean, that's happened too. But it's the ones that create a story out of the house. And a lot of times what I find are the agents that are saying, this is where they had, the 4th grade, baseball team party, or, where they were able to play baseball over here. And, the second base was in the pool. So you ran to first, jumped, swam to second, swam to third, got out and ran home, and talked about, how the family that lived there was using the property. And it was, and that had never crossed my mind, but I remember when someone did that, and I thought, man, I would buy this house right now if I were actually looking, because they just made it sound like so much fun. But they, the agents that can relate what's there to what might be for the next family, I felt like was really, was really unique.
Yeah, it was it's interesting too when if you go to pages 56 to like 59, right? They talk
Hmm.
about with customer feedback, and you can eliminate the negatives or you can elevate the positives, right? So they looked at feedback for customer service, customer experience, and it was on a 1 to 7 scale. And the companies that, when they got the feedback, went to work to try to eliminate the ones, twos, and threes were less profitable long term than the companies that just looked at the four, five, and sixes and said, how do we make these a seven? Right. So what
Hmm.
they're saying is, they're saying you're going to be 80% more successful if you can elevate your B's, your four, five, and six to a seven. And um the concept was like, to bring that into real estate, I started to think about, well, how, so when you walk in and you listen to people talk about, like, what's the thing that sticks out to them the most? They're telling you their four, five, and sixes that they want to make a seven, right? So if
Hmm.
someone comes in and they really like the pool, or in my case, it's like, show me the office, show me the home gym, the rest of the house I can deal with, you know, like in that case, now I guess I started to grill. So show me the outdoor kitchen. But with those three things, like that's what I want to look for, right? So like
Right.
go in and paint that picture of what it is the person is really looking for, and how that can be something that is an uber positive,
Right.
even though some of
And
that stuff might not be as good.
and maybe if you walk into that gym and they're sitting there saying, hey, this mirror and Peloton, I think it's called the mirror, right? That is one of
Yeah.
those workout. Yeah, like this mirror and this Peloton go with your gym, or this outdoor living area is staying. This whole grill and all these elements, the screened in porch, the fans, the heaters, this is all staying. Oh, by the way, and this is where you'll get to see all your clients play baseball at night out here on the screen.
Mm.
And they start putting you in that situation.
Yeah, that's something else that was really cool, was coming to think about like peaks, is you talk about building peaks,
Hmm.
is identifying for yourself what, in the example they shared was a guy who was diagnosed with cancer, and he stepped down from his position. He had maybe a little more than a month to live. And they started to define and execute perfect days.
Hmm.
And as an agent, I think even just asking one of your clients as you're in your car, hey, well, tell me about what your perfect day would be like. If you could wave a magic wand and make a perfect day, what would it be like? And they talk about sitting by the fire. They talk about going fishing. They talk about going for a hike, playing golf. Like, they're telling you what their perfect day is. And if you can find a house that matches up closely with what that perfect day is, to allow them to make that perfect day part of every day, probably going to sell that house.
Hmm. And it was, I can relate to that because my dad had terminal cancer. And so I was able to spend just about every day of the last 4 years of his life together. And at first, when he first passed, I was constantly saying, like, I wish I had more memories of all the fun trips we took together. But all the memories, and still to this day, that come to mind are every day going over to the house that I grew up in where my parents lived and sitting out in the backyard, listening to the pool and just sitting back there. We had a baseball, as you know, my family's a big baseball family. So we had baseball games on out there, and we had dinner, and that's what we did every night. And it was perfect. I mean, it was, when I think back, oh, if I had another moment with my dad, what would I take? I would take sitting in the backyard watching baseball and just eating dinner out by the pool a
Yeah.
million times over. And that's in it is in it's those what you think are just such routine moments, that are more memorable than you think they are. More, I would say, more influential.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just the power of those little moments too. Like the two examples
Right.
shared in there that were eye-opening to me was the person who was at the Ritz-Carlton and they flew back home and their son had left their little giraffe, Joshy, at the Ritz-Carlton. So the dad goes in and the kid's in hysterics at home. He can't find Joshy, and the dad says, "Hey, he's on an extended vacation. He's just staying at the Ritz-Carlton. He's going to be home in 2 or 3 days. He's just having an extended time. Like, you should allow him to go recover too." And then he calls Ritz Carlton. He's like, "Hey, if you guys found my little kid's giraffe, if not, he's just gonna go buy another one." And they call him back like, within an hour, we found the giraffe. He's on an extended vacation. We're sending him back with with a gift. And they literally took the giraffe and put him on a golf cart and put him in a bed and put him in a swimming pool and at the bar, and they put him on a massage table with cucumbers on his eyes. And they took all these pictures, made a photo book of Joshy's vacation and sent it back to the kid. And then the dad wrote a blog about it that it was seen by like 2 million people because it went viral. And it's like that one decision to do just a little bit more completely changed the game. And the thing is, like, as a real estate agent, how many people are doing just a little bit more? I don't know, but go do what Erin mentioned earlier and go look in a city somewhere at 4 or 5 houses, right, with 4 or 5 different agents and see who does more. And guess what? 90% of them will do exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be that hard for you to elevate yourself to another level, and you might not know even what it's going to be. How about the example of Southwest Airlines and the funny comment on the planes?
Right.
I mean, just if you've ever flown Southwest out of Love Field, right? And they have like, if the oxygen masks drop and you're a parent with 2 children, put yours on first and then put the mask on the child who will probably not put you in the home second, right? And like people laugh. And then they went and found research that showed people who were on a plane that left a comment card where an agent had made a funny comment flew 1/2 flight segment more a year, which turned out to be about $120 million for Southwest Airlines, which allowed them to buy 2 more planes every year.
Right.
So think about, like, now, this is what they said is they just started to make those comments intentional for their agents. So like as an agent, how do you take feedback? How do you elicit feedback about what was really good from the clients who you've already served and what they really liked? And you might find out that it was the fact that they took you to lunch every time and you picked up the tab. They may have really enjoyed that. So maybe if you did that more often, somebody might buy 1 extra house from you, and that probably would pay for all the lunches.
Right. And one thing that is interesting that not many real estate agents remember to do is to celebrate the anniversary of when someone moved or bought a house, the closing date. And it's amazing what just sending an email card of saying happy home anniversary does. It's, and then you think about it and you create, if you have 1 transaction a month, that's 12 per year. And you created a moment for each of those 12 people, just 1 moment. They refer you 1 client, the next year it's 24. And then they're referring you a client. Before you know it, your business has exploded.
Wow.
And it's just what we're talking about. It's so powerful and what happens in your business. And then you're referring people out because, you're on vacation.
That's the compound effect.
Yes, the compound effect.
Compound effect of the little things over time. And think about how easy it is from a system standpoint of on your calendar, on your Google Calendar, somebody buys a house and you put on your calendar, Brian Kane bought this property on this date, and you just set it to repeat every year on that same day. And you put into a part of your morning routine, or you have your assistant do it, that they look at your calendar and they say, hey, you need to call the Kane stay and say congratulations on your anniversary. Just check in with them for 5 minutes. And that 5-minute investment every day might double your business.
Exactly.
Interesting. Because then what it also does, right, is might go, hey, yeah, thanks. But hey, you know what? Hey, we got a kid coming. We're looking at another house.
Exactly.
It gives
that's usually what it does.
Yeah.
We got a promotion. We're moving. That's generally what it sparks.
Gives you a purposeful and fun way to stay connected. Well, speaking about staying connected, Erin, I'm super excited for next week's podcast, where we are going to break down, for those that are following and want to stay with us, chapters 5 and 6. We're talking about insight, tripping over the truth in the stretch for insight. Looking forward to it. Any parting thoughts for today?
The one quote that I wrote down that I really liked was, they said, building peaks is worth the struggle. And I thought that was a great quote to take with you for chapter 4.
Yeah. Building peaks
is worth the struggle.
Because it's the peak that creates the moment. And when people have the moment, they're never going to forget it.
That's the elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's be intentional about building peaks today. Great day to be with you, Allie, Beth. Thanks for being here. Erin, thanks for making time.
Thank you.